peptides fundamentally are what I call organic signaling molecules or fractionated proteins of amino acids that are found naturally occurring in the human body. And they differentiate from allopathic normal meds and pills and stuff like that. They kind of just band-aid symptoms. And then they break down in the human body and they leave residue back. If you're one of the people, call them the 65-year-old boomer who takes 20 different color-coded pills every single day, you are doomed because you have all these side effects from the breakdown of those pills in your body versus somebody who's using peptides and they can, systematically address the inflammatory cascades from where the injury or the origin of the injury was and speed up healing like 6 to 10 times faster.
And we are live. Jay, what's up, brother?
Robert, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. You were just recently on Mark Bell here like last week or something.
We filmed it in the end of May, but the podcast broke, I think, a couple weeks ago. But it was an awesome podcast. Mark's a very close personal friend of mine and we went super deep on a lot of different things, which I felt, it was a very clear message, but we were all over the place, and it's led to a lot of people reaching out to me, asking me about various things that we spoke about on the podcast. So I was, very blessed and humbled and grateful that I had the opportunity to talk to him.
Yeah, Mark's a cool dude, man. Like I appreciate the fact that he's just open, receptive, willing to experiment and try things and then just, blatantly say what the impact was. I feel like we need more of that. I mean,
the fruit fast, I think too many people are caught up in the sugar fasting, but I've been doing it. I'm not currently doing it because I'm traveling so much, but I did it for about 3 months this summer. And I can honestly say, as a guy who's written multiple best-selling books on fat loss and fasting, that it really is probably the most effective in a short term, lose body fat in the fastest way because you're elevating, fiberglass growth factor, FGF21, which increases metabolic rate by 20%. So it's a really good thing for people who are like long-term keto or carnivore people who have really retarded their insulin metabolism because they don't eat enough carbohydrates, specifically and strategically. So it's like a really awesome diet to try out for a short amount of time. But I think people hear the word sugar fast and they freak out. And, they go into like, panic mode about like, you cannot eat high levels of sugar and think that it's healthy. And it's like, no, dude, we're recommending that we eat high levels of fruit, for a very strategic short time window to elevate FGF21 and phosphofructokinase and, increase your metabolic rate. And it really does work. I mean, again, I've done it for 3 months on and off. And I lowered my body fat, pretty much. I mean, I'm a guy that walks around under 10% year round anyway, but you can easily manipulate your body composition, 3 to 4%. And for heavier people, probably 10 to 15%, over a short amount of time if you do it right. It's just the problem, as you know, bro, is that nutrition, most people are ignorant about nutrition in America, really everywhere. And they don't even understand what the difference between a carbohydrate, fat, and a protein molecule is. And so when you start asking people to like eat nothing but fruit, or candy or whatever bullshit they hear, they confuse it and they're like, oh, I can eat Snickers.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, bro, you can't eat Snickers. You can eat a couple of gummy bears every now and then in between eating fruit and drinking fruit juice. But
yeah.
So it's one of those things that Mark went out on a limb and he blew it up. And thankfully that, he brought a lot of smart people, including myself, into that sphere. And we, tested it and played around with it and we found that it works. But I just see far too many people not understanding nutrition enough. So when most people come to me and say, do you think it'll work for me? I just kind of say, I don't know. I don't know enough about you to know if you understand nutrition well enough to make it work for you.
Yeah. It's an interesting space, man. Like nutrition, I mean, you can distill the basic core elements of nutrition down to like the simplest form and the wisdom is pretty common sense stuff. But then you can also like flesh things out in great detail and go down the rabbit holes and like, what the problem is when you got the general population that's trying to hear like these sound bites of the rabbit hole depths of things and they're not implementing the basic foundational stuff.
Well, I'll give you a good tip. And me and Mark talked about this on a recent live stream. My daughter is a senior in high school. She's going into senior year, started Monday. And she has a balanced 1450 SAT score, which is 50 points away from perfect. And she's 4.4 student, full scholarship anywhere, all advanced AP classes and stuff like that. But if I ask her, what is the difference between a protein, carbohydrate, and a fat, and give me the energy density requirements of all three of those, she's just looked at me like huh? Yeah. And when you understand that like the average person in America does not understand nutrition because they don't learn it in school. I mean, dude, this doctors have one 101 level class about nutrition in medical school. So the average person in America is functionally retarded when it comes to understanding human nutrition. And I learned from my mentors when I was literally 22 years old that the strongest drug that a human could ever possibly take is food.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to dumb down a population, keep them ignorant of nutrition, and that's what you got in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty bleak outlook right now for sure. I mean, we keep getting sicker, and the information's out there. I mean, information's in abundance right now, but like people, I don't know, man. They overcomplicate things. They don't put in the work and the consistency. And if like, at the end of the day, like if it's not sustainable and consistent for you, then it doesn't matter. Like you got to be able to adhere to it.
Dude, AI, exactly right, by the way. And AI is making things worse because what AI is a mimic. And so all it does is amplify the signal to noise ratio. And when the signal to noise ratio is all noise, which most of it is, right? I mean, people go on forums like Reddit. I mean, they go on all these places that are supposed to be, you know, repositories of great information and data, and they're all just garbage in, garbage out. So, you know, ChatGPT and Grok and all these AI bots are literally collectively scanning nothing but crap and then regurgitating when people ask it questions, crap. And so, you know, I mean, I see this all the time because obviously people use my name for a lot of things, hormones, peptides, fat loss, fasting, and they'll send me clips of like, this is what it says. And I'm like, my God, I never said that. That's not even right. Like, I mean, how could it be wrong if it's like, if it has my books, which are, you know, easily found online and free, you know, from a PDF version, like how is it getting it wrong? Well, it's getting it wrong because people don't understand the terms, concepts, and the data points, and they're just collectively spinning it around. And so again, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so again, people are getting dumber because AI is actually giving them bad information.
So we're totally starting off with a philosophical question here, but like you can't really put that genie back in the box. Like they're not going to close the doors on AI. So like, what is the outcome going to be from this? Are people, is there going to be like an implosion point, or are people just going to get sick and die off, and then it's going to be population decline, and we got to start from ground zero again?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, very truthfully, my opinion, and obviously it's very informed. I don't use AI. For the record, I do not use AI. Refuse. AI is, if we get into like, you know, and we're all over the place on this podcast, which is amazing because you're asking good questions, but AI is a hyperdimensional control construct. It comes from outside of this realm of, call it tech or awareness or understanding. And so you're like, you know, for people that have no idea what I just said, it's alien. And if you start playing around with alien tech coming from a different realm of reality or, you know, again, a data set, like you are asking for bad things to happen. And so what's happening, I think, is too many people are relying on AI to think critically, to discern, you know, I mean, dude, how many times do you see this? Like whenever I go to conventions now with other, you know, quote unquote SMEs, influencers, you know, entrepreneurs, e-commerce owners and stuff like that, we're all around each other joking and we're like reading people's texts or emails and we're like, how many people are responding to you using AI? Like we joke about it amongst ourselves, right? So it's like the average person isn't even using their brain anymore to respond. So to your question, it's a have and have not society. And I do think that the people that refuse to use their God-given brain and intellect and their critical thinking and discernment skills are going to have to just be either beamed up into the cloud consciously, which is obviously what a lot of the transhumanist people out there want. And people that aren't like that, which I consider myself, you know, we will be living in a different reality. We will be living in maybe outside of major cities. Maybe we will be living in what I call conscious communes or conscious collectives. I mean, I don't know, but I definitely know that people that are constantly relying on AI are going to eventually lose their faculties because the brain is like anything else. It's a muscle, right? If you don't use it, like how do you expect it to continue to become strong and wise and again, discerning and critical thinking? It won't. It won't.
Yeah. Common sense is becoming less common. Makes you want to just buy a plot of land off grid somewhere and milk your own cow.
A lot of people are doing that, bro.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty appealing lifestyle for me. So let's dive into something else that is widely misunderstood, of which you are an expert, and that's all things peptide. Let's get your interest right now. And this is you I'm talking to, not some AI rendition of you. If it is you, go ahead and give me the down low on peptides, man. Let's just start from the ground level here. What is a peptide? What are use case scenarios? Where are pros and cons? Like, just give me the whole deep dive on it.
Yeah, for sure. And the Jay Campbell bot is actually being constructed right now. I think it's 3 or 4 months away. I'm serious. I'm not joking. Like, I literally have a company that's building it for me. We're in conversations and discussions of like how it's going to look. But and again, as I said, I refuse to use it myself. But if somebody wants to build the Jay Campbell bot, fine. It'll be used in my private communities to help people and stuff like that. But so honestly, so peptides fundamentally are what I call, organic signaling molecules or fractionated proteins of amino acids that are found naturally occurring in the human body, in, animals and plants. I mean, pretty much all of sentient life. And they differentiate from, say, like, allopathic Rockefeller petroleum distillate medications in that they are able to treat the fundamental root cause of illness, disease, dysregulation. Whereas, as allopathic normal meds and pills and stuff like that, they kind of just band-aid symptoms and then they break down in the human body and they leave residue back. Again, they're petroleum distillate for the most part. And that petroleum distillate leaves very harmful, toxic, biocontaminants and stuff like that, break down and cause side effects and other symptoms and harm over time. So it's like, if you're one of the people, call them the 65-year-old boomer who takes 20 different color-coded pills every single day that you've gotten from your doctor, you are doomed because you have all these different symptoms and side effects from the breakdown of those pills in your body versus somebody who's using peptides who can, let's say simply if they sprain their elbow or their ankle or their shoulder or something like that, they can use a healing peptide like BPC 157 combined with thymosin beta, 500 or 400, and they can, systematically address the inflammatory cascades from where the injury or the origin of the injury was and speed up healing like 6 to 10 times faster than somebody who would just be, taking the allopathic med of like ice, elevation and heat. And so you can, just dramatically increase the rate of healing. And again, you're not causing symptoms or side effects to the body because those peptides are obviously naturally found in the body. In fact, BPC is found in gastric digestive juice. So it's like you're just using something that your body already makes naturally to enhance, or accelerate your healing from whatever, again, the injury you are. And then obviously you can extrapolate that for the brain, for cognitive processes, for muscles, to enhance muscularity or skeletal muscle. And then you can do the same thing for fat loss and on it goes. Longevity, anti-aging, improving your eyesight, improving organ function. I mean, there's so many different peptides that you can use to do all these great things. So it does represent, I would say, what I like to say is a fundamental change or alteration to the way most people in society understand peptides or understand just medicine and healing. And that with peptides and bioregulators specifically, you can literally fundamentally treat the root cause of whatever it is that ails you. And
you can
again,
get
the
pretty
other things
localized
can't.
with it, right?
I'm
Like
sorry?
you can get pretty targeted and localized with it. Like it's not going to be dispersed throughout the entire body. If you sprain your ankle, it's relatively localized to that inflamed area.
100%. So you've got like to go deeper on that, like you've got a number of different delivery systems. But for sure, always the highest impact is going to be what we call subcutaneous or IM, intramuscular injection. And again, with a peptide, because they're aqueous based, they're just water based, molecules. You can inject it with a 32 gauge insulin needle, which is literally a needle that, you could jab yourself in the cheek and not really feel it. Again, a lot of people have a phobia to needles until they actually start injecting peptides because they're like, oh my God, a needle. It's one of those things where most people instinctually are afraid. But like I say, like once you get used to injecting a hypodermic insulin syringe needle, which again is tiny, it's microscopic, it's like brushing your teeth. You just become used to it. You do it. You can do, 2 or 3 different injections a day or, 5 or 6 injections, 8 injections a week or whatever. It becomes second nature to you. So it's not a big deal. Beyond, the highest impact, which is obviously injectable, you also have transdermal, which is obviously, a cream or a serum. And then you also have intranasal, Depending on the size of the peptide or what is called the micron size of the molecule, some can be used or absorbed intranasally. And then, of course, nowadays, like my company, BioLongevity Labs, we also have what are called biostrips. And the strips represent a very fundamentally new delivery system, which are actually electrospun wafers. And these electrospun wafers, you put them on your tongue and they instantly go to the roof of the mouth and they absorb through what is called the mucosal lining of the cheek and the gums. So in the past, there were oral products made that had to go through the digestive tract, first pass through the intestine. You'd have to deal with stomach acid and all the other things that are going on in the digestive tract. Whereas now with these wafers, they absorb down through here. So you get them into systemic bloodstream or systemic circulation, portal circulation is what it's known, probably about 65, somewhere between 65 and 75% as effective as an injection. So that's also a very awesome new form of delivery for people that are afraid of needles. There's, again, a huge percentage of people that will never inject themselves. They're scared shitless of needles. Doesn't matter what people like I tell them. Doesn't matter if I jab them one time with it and say, did you feel that? They're like, no, they're still afraid of needles. It's just this phobia and this hang up. And so these new strips are obviously a boon to delivery systems for people who are afraid of needles. And honestly, Robert, they'll be even better enhanced absorbable oral and wafer technologies and even transdermal technologies that are coming down the pipeline. And I would say within 2 years, nobody will be injecting anymore. There'll be better delivery systems or more efficacious or equal to injectables. I mean, there's already people out there that are delivering or not delivering, but they're working on technology where it's going to be like a Velcro stick. And so you'll just like put it on your arm and it will deliver it without any pain. It's still going to be going through the top level of the dermis. So again, delivery system technology is like being dramatically and massively enhanced right now. So like I said, I would think within 18 to 24 months, injections will be a thing of the past.
Does that hold true regardless of the type of peptide and the use case scenario? Or is it just, there's certain peptides that require the injections, or could they all be, dosed via the patches or the creams or the strip?
I mean, it's definitely going to be based on like the origin of your injury. So if you if you sprain your ankle or you sprain your shoulder or you do something to your knee or something like that, obviously delivering the peptide locally at the point of origin or the closest to the impact of the origin of the injury is going to be best. But I still think that there'll be technologies that will deliver it equal to an injections. I mean, for sure, you'll always be able to use a subcutaneous insulin syringe to inject it into that localized area and it will be effective, but there will be technologies that will compete with that, if not, eliminate the need for people to have any kind of invasive technological procedure like with a needle.
Nice. Is there, there's a ton of it, but like the red tape around peptides, especially from like the medical industry, I've dove into that briefly with prior guests, but like, what does the future hold for that? I mean, is the medical establishment kind of getting on board, or do they just see this as a massive opportunity lost? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So the best answer, the easiest answer is if they can patent it and make a lot of money, they're on board, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it looks like right now. If you look at the peptide industry specifically, I talk a lot about this. You've got like almost 95% of people have heard of GLP peptides, right? They've heard of their brothers, sisters, aunts, cousin taking Wegovy or Mounjaro or Zepbound or one of those peptides to suppress appetite, enhance metabolic rate, lose body fat, lose weight, etc. But most of the information out there on that is very negative because the average person who uses a GLP peptide has no earthly idea how to do it. Their doctors don't give them proper instructions. And as I like to say, the unfortunate part of pharma is that pharma's model is start high from a dosage standpoint and then go higher, right? Because that's how everybody makes more money. That's how they, increase or titrate the dosage patterning for the patients. But when you do that, Robert, eventually as I always say, what goes up must come down. So as you're continually elevating these people's dosages, they're paying more money. They're shutting down their receptor sensitivity faster because they're taking elevated dosages, which they never needed to do from the beginning. Because if you do this right, it's about microdosing. It's about starting low and going slow. It's about assessing your individual unique biochemical individuality and tolerance to the peptide. But of course, pharma doesn't want any of that because pharma just wants to make money and move on to the next person. And so you've got so many people that have tried GLP peptides and have had a horrible experience, or again, just call it a failed colossal endeavor. And then they go into the media, and then all the big name, celebrity doctors glom onto this and they say, oh, these are horrible for you. They cause muscle loss, thyroid damage, et cetera, et cetera. But to your original question, as long as they can patent it, pharma will sell it. There's a lot of peptides, obviously, that are out there that are sold in the research community from like my company, BioLongevity Labs, which are not illegal to sell because the FDA has no purview legally or biomedically in the research community. So if you're a person, me, you, any person who basically says, hey, I want to buy this peptide and I want to research on myself or my laboratory animal or my cat, my dog, because a lot of people do give peptides to their animals or domesticated animals, you legally have a right to do so, but you're basically claiming that you're using it for research purposes. So that's kind of how it goes. Now, in the medical space, like with compound pharmacies, a doctor can write a script for a peptide off-label at any time they want. But for the people watching this podcast to understand the differentiation is that if you buy a research peptide, you're probably going to pay 1/7 to 1/10 the cost of what you're going to get if you get it from a compound pharmacy and a doctor's script. So again, the separation is like, do you want to be one of those people that wants to learn how to do this? Because when you buy it for research purposes, you have to learn to reconstitute. You have to understand the dosage patterning between milligrams and micrograms. It's not hard, but some people, they want to have their hands held. They want their doctor to do everything for them. And so they get it from the compounded route and they pay 10 times as much. But if they get it and if they pay 10 times as much and they get it from the compound pharmacy, it's probably going to come already ready to, be used, which is normally a reconstituted vial of peptides and syringes. And they tell you where to pull on the syringe, when you inject it, and you just do it. And it's pretty much dummy proof. Versus research, you got to actually, put the bacterial static water into the peptide vial. And then you got to understand, how to do the calculation as far as like, what is my dosage, milligram, microgram. People like me make it easy because we create, peptide calculators, which are easily found online. We also create, PDF documents called cheat sheets and stuff like that, where we give people like dosage guides. If this is your situation, you can apply it like that. So there's been a lot of information provided, I would say, to the research peptide using community in the last 2 or 3 years, but it still is, the onus is on the individual to really do the work and, learn and familiarize themselves with what to do. And so that's kind of where we are in peptide world right now. It's like you either choose your doctor, pay a lot more money and have it, really cookie cutter and dumbed down for you, or you go out, on your own and you really learn about these things and you learn how to use them from a research capacity on your own.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these compounding pharmacies are kind of like, not really all that well put together to begin with. So you're not getting consistent dosage oftentimes, and you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
100%. It's the wild, wild west. Like if I would tell you what my attorney or our regulatory attorney that advises our company says when he talks about peptides, he says, peptides are clear as mud and buyer beware. And so you really, really have to understand that, like, if you're getting them from a compound pharmacy, make sure you do your due diligence, make sure your doctor knows what's going on. And if you buy them from a research company, make sure you're buying them from an accredited company that does certificates of authenticity on all of their products, has lab assays, visibly marked on the website, showing lot numbers and batch numbers so you can trace, where the peptide was manufactured, how it was rated, did it come back 99.9% statistically pure? Was it 98.6%, purity? So all of these things like are part of this, process and chain of command when you're in the peptide space. And so that's why it really does come down to buyer beware.
How are these peptides made at scale? Like, what does the actual production process entail?
Yeah, so it's a great question. They're really, so between compound and research, the best companies are doing the same shit. Because most of the raw materials for this, at least at this moment right now, like say August of 2025, the raw materials come from either China or India. 95% are coming from China, 5% India. and then they're sent to countries like the USA or Canada. And then a lot of them are finished. And what I mean by finished, they're placed into vials, lyophilized and put into, fancy equipment and machinery and stuff like that. So then they make it into vials and are labeled and all that stuff and then sold to the end user. But I would say, at the latest, February or March of next year, all of the major companies, including ours, will be doing everything from soup to nuts inside the United States. So we'll be lyophilizing, we'll be synthesizing, we'll be manufacturing. These will be in like GMP, good manufacturing practice, sterility processing controlled, all with certificates of authenticity, FDA registered, FDA certified, not FDA approved, but FDA registered and FDA certified. And by the way, just so people understand, FDA approved is like just paying a bribe to the FDA to say that you're FDA approved. I mean, realistically, it's a giant pay for play scam. And by the way, that's the same way that all drugs are, right? Like if you go through stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 in the United States to get FDA approval, you're basically just playing their pay to play game. Like you got to pay enough money for research and development, to get approved by the FDA. But like there's so many different levels. There's FDA registered, there's FDA cleared, and then there's GMP, which is a good manufacturing process. Like all of these things give you like a leg up from a manufacturing standpoint, from a credibility angle. But FDA approved is like that final step where you've paid all the bribes to the big governing body, which is again the FDA, to say that you're FDA approved. But there's tons of great research chemical companies out there and research manufacturers that aren't FDA approved that put out the exact same spec and the exact same quality that an FDA approved facility puts out. It's just they don't have that, quote unquote piece of paper that says they paid the big chief bribe.
Yeah, it's kind of like buying your cattle from a local rancher. It's all organic, but he didn't pay to have the FDA or the USDA organic sticker on there.
That's exactly how it is. In fact, what I tell people is that peptides in the research space are the decentralized form of peptides in the medical space, because again, you're getting the same quality and you're again, buyer beware, assuming you're working with a company and a manufacturer that can prove all that. But you're just not paying that insane markup that the FDA / federal government / AMA / some alphabet governing body makes you pay because they give the final stamp of approval.
What's happening over the next year that's going to allow for all the manufacturing to take place in the U.S. where it's predominantly coming from China?
Just a race. I mean, it's great. Nobody's ever asked me that question. Great question. Well, there's a lot of factors, but it's honestly just a race to avoid the Trump tariffs. Because what's happening right now with China is that anything from a raw material standpoint that has previously come from China is now almost impossible to get into America in a, call it, regular timeline. Like I talked to some of my friends in the manufacturing process in the world. And, I talked to a guy literally yesterday and today. And he's like, dude, shit that used to take 24 hours is taking 3 weeks. So if you compound that and, extrapolate that kind of data from all these different widgets that come into the United States from, again, why do they make them in China? Because it's cheaper to manufacture. It's cheaper labor, blah, blah, blah. Why does China look? I mean, look at Apple, right? Like Apple just took a huge fine because Trump told, the guy, what's his name? What's the guy that runs Apple now? Tim, whatever his name is. He says, if you don't start manufacturing them in Indiana or wherever it is that Apple's got this giant warehouse now, I'm going to fine you $4 or $6 billion a year. Right. So, I mean, if you look at all these major companies, they've always been outsourcing either to China or India because it's cheaper to make it and cheaper to build it, with those things there. So that's what's happening in the United States now is that all these people are scrambling to have the technology, the lyophilization machines, the other stuff that they need, which is kind of high-end tech, in order to synthesize the raw materials that have always been traditionally synthesized outside of Hong Kong. There's I want to say 35 to 45 peptide spec synthesizing, manufacturing labs right outside of Hong Kong. And so that's where all the peptides have just been traditionally manufactured from a raw material standpoint. But now, again, due to the Trump tariff, due to the craze in peptide manufacturing, it's just a lot of people want to do it in the United States.
Out of curiosity, what do you think motivated China to prioritize this so early on relative to other countries?
I mean, in truth, it's just because they're advanced over everyone in math and science. And they, they looked at, manufacturing, whether it was peptides or textiles or, any kind of medical grade raw material. They always just took a huge ownership and a liking to it. And it's been, that way since like the mid to late 80s. And so they just built the infrastructure. And over time, people adapted to the cost of doing goods over there from a standpoint of it was just much cheaper. And so everything has just been related to China. But now Trump comes in and says, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We want to build this stuff in the United States. We want to have, United States know-how and wherewithal to do a lot of this stuff. And so a lot of people are just saying now, rather than wait 5 to 10 times longer to get it out of China. And by the way, there's no reliability that you can get it anymore too, right? Like it can get stuck on a container in customs and you never see it. And I hear that story all the time now from people too. So I think most people that are big time in their manufacturing processes and revenue streams and stuff like that have just said, hey, we don't have an option. We have to nationalize this. We have to move our production into facilities in the United States. Otherwise, we're going to pay massive amounts of money in fines, and we're going to be out of our supply and our inventory. Supply chains are going to be, backlogged because we can't get stuff readily in through the Trump tariffs. And initially people were saying that these were going to be really good for America, and maybe they will be, honestly, Robert, in time. But in the short term, this is a disaster. Like it's actually costing a lot of money to the United States economy. I'm a pro-business person. I would consider myself an anarchist. I think that both political parties should be blown up. I think they both are kind of like two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. But I don't think that anything that Trump is doing right now from a tariff standpoint is beneficial to the global economy. I know they're doctoring. I mean, just like the Democrats with Biden doctored the books, the Trump administration is doctoring the books right now. But I'm in the manufacturing process. I work in it every single day in and day out, and I'm seeing people get killed, absolutely killed. Now, will this change and improve next year and the year after and maybe the year after that? Probably. I think theoretically this is the purpose of the tariffs. But in the short term, dude, this is bad. And I think that there will be some sort of a major financial catastrophe, at least in fourth quarter, probably this year, before there's another uptick. And as you know, dude, everything in its economic cycles is up and down, right? You have cycles. And so I just think that like there hasn't been a really serious down cycle in a long time. And I think there has to be some sort of a culling. I think at some point, because I just know so many people that are being bludgeoned right now, in the global manufacturing process. They're getting killed.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of manufacturing with, the food products that we make. And like, I'm not opposed to tariffs outright, but like there's some things like cacao butter. So that's one of our primary ingredients. It doesn't grow in America. You're kind of up a creek with no paddle in that scenario,
And there's tons of other products like that, right? So there's nothing we can do. So it's like, Trump, theoretically is doing good things in the way he explains it, but it's not in the short term for the global economy because the way, like you said, exactly the way systems have been built over decades.
Yeah, totally. So switching gears slightly here, when we're talking about peptides in regards to performance enhancement from an athletic standpoint, what does that look like going forward? I mean, like, me personally, I'm a natural bodybuilder, and they've got like this crazy exhaustive banned substances, and they pretty much have a zero tolerance policy for everything. So, like, do you think they're gonna be receptive to some peptides like the 157 for recovery and injury prevention, or is it just gonna be like a ban on everything?
I don't know, dude, but I'll just tell you this, bro. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I will tell you this 100%. I mean, first off, there's no such thing as natural bodybuilding. I mean, that's a scam. I mean, I competed for a long time as a natural bodybuilder, and I have seen guys like in the NPC side, because I was in a lot of that. I mean, I'm out of it. I haven't done any of this in over 12 years now, but I mean, obviously I stay in shape and stuff like that, and I'm conditioned, but like I know the whole space. But I mean, I've seen guys in the natural bodybuilding that were more enhanced than guys that weren't, right? So it's like, it just depends on how you understand the system and know what you're doing and what you're saying. But to your question, because it's a great question, and I have said this on only one other podcast, like we are within 1 year of creating men and women who are literally genetic mutants. Like there are drugs in the pipeline, GLP-4s and GLP-5 agonists that will, without a doubt, have people get on stage at, let's say pro bodybuilders will be 350 pounds of 5% body fat. So it's like if you look at like the best bodybuilders in the world in, you know, the last 25 years, you got the Ronnie Coleman's, the Jay Cutlers, you know, the Paul Dilletts, you know, what was his name? Phil Heath's. These guys at their biggest and leanest were 265 to 275 pounds. So you will see guys that will be 75 to 80 pounds heavier and leaner. And again, that's just due to the drugs. And it'll be easier to get on stage, you know, leaner than it ever was. You know, in the past, as you know, as a competitor, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a thing of the past. You can use the drugs now. These stage 4, there's a stage 4 GLP coming called bioglutide that will dramatically accelerate metabolic rate and prevent muscle loss. It has a myostatin inhibiting factor to it. So if you take a genetically, you know, elevated, just call it a genetic mutant guy, maybe a Latin American or a black person, or, you know, African American person, and you give them these drugs, they will shed body fat and build muscle like the fucking the bulls they used to show, the myostatin inhibiting bulls. You know, so you'll see these people and you'll be like, what in the fuck is that? They look like an X-Men. So like that's how close we are. You know, there's other drugs, and again, my company is going to be representing these. There's a follistatin. It's basically called a recombinant follistatin, and then there's a recombinant clotho. And when you look into these meds or these drugs, I mean, you're basically talking about like taking the most powerful life enhancing or longevity enhancing drugs like clotho, combining it with recombinant follistatin, and you can probably put 2 pounds of skeletal muscle on a person a week and accelerate their metabolic rate by 40%. So imagine taking a 29-year-old genetic freak bodybuilder, man or woman, and giving them, you know, 5 micrograms of clotho every 2 weeks and 1.5, you know, grams or 1.5, milligrams of recombinant follistatin every other week. And dude, they'll put on 20 pounds of muscle and lose 5 pounds of fat. And again, and these are in genetic freaks. So, I mean, this is all in the pipeline. It's all coming. And so I would say that, you know, we will change, again, assuming society holds together, we will change. We will see people that we've never seen before. Super shredded, super muscular, not having to diet. You know, I mean, sure, they have to lower their carbohydrate impact and increase movement patterning and stuff like that, but nothing like the hardcore days of like bros, you know, having to eat tilapia and white rice 4 or 5 times a day. You know, I mean, that all those, that stuff is a thing of the past. Again, if you understand this like wizard pharmacology, and I'm seeing it, right? Because I'm kind of in the ground zero, in the epicenter of it. And I'm just seeing things that I'm just like blows my mind. I mean, bro, there, you know, today, my company, we just released, it's not available. It'll be out next week, but I just got it delivered today. A product called Biozapatite, and it's an oral GLP-2. So you could take 2 capsules of this AM and PM and increase your metabolic rate by 15 to 20%. And decrease your appetite by 20%. Now, obviously, you still have to be intelligent about how you eat if you're a competitor and stuff like that. But I mean, this is stuff that's like no side effects with this. It won't, There's no side effects. It just increases metabolic rate and slows your appetite down, right? So you'll eat less. So if you're a competing bodybuilder, male or female, and you take this product, it's going to be so easy for you to get in contest ready condition because you're not going to be hungry.
So, like, is there ways to test to see if those people have been taking that? Like, is that even traceable?
No. And it will be, I mean, it will eventually be, but no, they're 5 years behind the drugs. And then, you know, once they do catch up, there'll be smart guys out there like me that'll mask the tests, you know, so you won't be able to find it. So we're getting into a realm now where it's like, it's always been the PED people were 10 years, and now it's like they're 3 to 5 years in front. But the technology is just becoming so advanced that like I don't really know if they'll ever really be able to test like, you know, people that are using like GLP-4s or GLP-5s, because there's really no residue to understand in the body because these are all organic signaling molecules. So it's not like you could say, oh, this person is overloaded, you know, with this, and say that he's cheating because that person could just be biochemically unique and have that amount in their body naturally. Or they can make that argument at least. But of course, people will know.
So what's a natural bodybuilder to do, man?
Do the same thing that everybody else is doing, bro. Take it. Take the good stuff. Take the goods.
Man, I've actually like legitimately been natural throughout my whole life.
That's
So
awesome.
it's unfortunate to see this unfolding for people. I mean, I don't have anything against people that take PEDs now, like to each their own. I don't care. It's not my place to judge.
Yeah.
But man, I wish people were honest with it. So that was a level playing field.
But there's never been a level playing field. I mean, everyone's, even as far back as anything goes in bodybuilding, especially, where performance enhancement or judging is subjective, you're going to have people that are going to cheat.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, again, there's a difference, right? Like, if somebody's taking 4 grams of gear a week plus growth hormone, plus insulin, plus all that versus somebody who's just using TRT and maybe, 2 caps of a GLP-2. I mean, there's obviously a giant gradient, from as far as like where people are. So, I mean, I personally would argue that a natural bodybuilder who's 50 and is taking testosterone because he has no testosterone that his body's naturally producing anymore because he lives in a contaminated fucking environment, along with a minor dose of a GLP, they still have to work. They still got to put in the work in the gym. They still got to, regulate what they're eating, from a protein and carbohydrate and fat, standpoint. But clearly, as I told you, like, if you want to go and tilt the balance with all the different drugs, I mean, the work that you would have to do 10, 15, 20 years ago is nothing with the stuff that is giving you the advantages. And that's why I'm saying, like, the genetically mutant, genetically advantageous people are going to just dominate the sport because of the drugs.
And so from a longevity, health, and wellness standpoint, like if people are taking these peptides to add more muscle, down regulate appetite, up regulate metabolism, like, are there any negative repercussions to that playing out over time? Because there's not really been, I wouldn't imagine, long-term studies done on some of these newer drugs and peptides.
Yeah, I mean, there might be. I mean, the truth is, Robert, is that, and I say this on every podcast probably I've ever been on when I get a chance to talk about it, is it's statistically provable that the leaner you are, the longer you will live.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say to a person, and you're not the guy to say this because you understand the space. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what that means, right? Like they think that when they think about people who are muscular, they think of giant bodybuilder people. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, I'm like, that's not true. Because if you're lean, what do you think the rest of your body is made of? You're muscular, right? So it's like if a woman is not a woman. If a man is 7 to 10% body fat, they're automatically muscular. Because you can't be walking around with water, right? Like it's got to be muscle in addition to what is holding the skeleton together in bone, right? So it's muscle, bone, and fat. So if you're a 7 to 10% guy year round, you're a very muscular, what is called as a hypermuscular person. So, and again, the statistics show that the less inflammation that you have, the less likely you will die of one of the diseases of aging, because inflammation is what causes disease. Because as you have inflammation around organ systems, biosystems, that is what causes the cellular degradation. The cellular degradation leads to one of the diseases of aging: heart disease, cancer, glaucoma, diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases of the brain, which are really type 3 diabetes. So it really just comes down to like people's awareness of how lean can I be? How healthy can I maintain my, leanness? Because as I like to say, it's about functional power and functional strength, right? Like you want to be in your 70s and 80s capable of hiking a mountain, picking up your grandkids, not being able to get winded when you walk up a stairs or access stairs or climb a mountain or, do a hike on a big hill or something like that. So I think that's really what matters as we get older. But to your question, like, I don't think we really know. We don't really have enough data. I mean, I will definitely say that if you're comparing, a person who uses a microdose of a GLP-3 or a GLP-4 and keeps their body fat below 10% year round and doesn't, contribute to all these other lifestyle, let's say, shorteners like alcoholism, eating too much sugar, obviously taking recreational drugs, smoking cigarettes, whatever, like I still think that person's going to live longer than the people that are, quote unquote, doing normal adjuvants that destroy life. I mean, bro, the average person right now, this is a statistical fact. This is how insane it is in America. 40 and up 73% of men and women in the United States right now are obese, according to the BMI, and if you're 40 and up. That's how many people in America are obese.
It is pretty ridiculous. It's crazy.
But I mean, I say this to people when I say that statistic, I mean, for you, you're like, yeah, of course. But like the average person doesn't believe that. And I'm like, motherfucker, go to an airport. Go to a big, place that has a hodgepodge of humans, a cross-sectional group of humans from all across the planet. And it's undeniable. Mm-hmm. I mean, dude, when you fly, and I fly a lot now, I mean, the planes are a disaster. Whether you fly first class or in the back of the plane, doesn't matter, because they got to wait for all these gigantic people to, get off the plane and then be wheelchaired up. And I'm walking on these jetties and these runways or, the ramps, and these poor bastards can't even push these people. Mm-hmm. They're so heavy. You know what I mean? So it's like our society is broken. We're past the sell-by date. I don't know if we blame the people or we blame the modernization. I mean, again, the food, what's his name from Mind Pump, does a really good presentation on this. Sal, he's a good friend. I think you know him. He talks about the hyper palatability of food. The corporations have engineered food for people to eat it in excess. And they eat more food than their bodies could ever capable of burning off. And they can't stop because they're addicted to the chemicals, in the actual food. So it's like, I have a lot of compassion for people that are obese and metabolically deranged, because again, what's been done to them, they have no control over. Now, obviously that's not making excuses for people, because yes, you could watch me or you and other people like you and I, and you can listen to us talk about like, hey, now you got to live insulin controlled. You got to exercise. You got to lift weights. You got to do cardio. You got to do certain things, but they don't, dude. The average people, they don't. We talked about that at the opening of the show. The average person is illiterate. They don't even know what a protein, carbohydrate, or fat is. They just eat because their bodies say, I'm hungry. And if you're eating to the point of like, you don't stop being hungry because the chemicals, you're going to end up being 250 plus pounds.
Yeah.
And that's where we are.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I think from like a self-preservation standpoint, obviously the more we can incentivize people to lose body fat and build and preserve muscle is like a very obvious goal that we should strive for. Do you think that we should strive for that goal at all cost, or do you think there could be a point of diminishing returns or a net negative by allowing people to push the easy button, so to speak? Case in point, I was getting my hair cut the other day and talking to the barber, and she's like, yeah, I'm down 20 pounds right now. Started taking GLP-1. Right. I'm a little bit worried because I'm going to have to come off of it here in a few weeks. And I'm like, okay, well, talk to me about your nutrition. Like, what do you do for, food? And she's like, well, I'm eating a lot less now. I don't eat the full sleeve of Oreos. What about protein? She's like, oh, I eat plenty of peanut butter for my protein. So it's like,
dude, it's crazy.
Obviously a very ignorant society when it comes to food. And it's great that she's lost the 20 pounds. But if we don't educate people in these fundamentals and we just provide them with an outlet to get the end outcome, do you think that could result in a net negative overall?
I mean, again, bro, haves and have-nots. That person is going to gain 40 pounds back when she stops the GLP.
Yeah.
Because she has not addressed the fundamental issues of her nutrition. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have any nutrition. The average person in America today doesn't even understand what a protein, what a fat, and what a carb is. You can't talk to them about the things that we talk about. I mean, again, we are outliers, dude. The keto world, the carnivore world, the metabolically flexible world, the people using GLP world, the biohackers, peptides, whatever, hormonally optimized people. Like, we are so aberrant from the average person. But yeah, I mean, that woman did not learn from the doctor that wrote that script for that drug. And I guarantee you she's taking a very high level of GLP-1, which is Wegovy. And she's getting it from a script through her medical benefits. And by the way, that drug, GLP-1, is an absolutely worthless drug. It should be abolished. There's no value in using a drug that does not enhance metabolic rate. So it's not helping these people. Like you just said, it's not improving their habits. It's literally telling their brain to eat less. It's not telling them to eat right and eat less. So all they do is they go days, if not hours, or I should say long windows of not eating. And then when they eat, they just eat less of the same shit that they used to shovel in their pie hole before they took the drug. So no habits are being improved. Like you said, protein. Oh, I get protein from peanut butter. What?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what protein is. My dad is very highly intelligent, multimillionaire retired man. And when I used to talk to him about, I mean, again, boomer, turns 80 in November. He says that he would get his protein from dipping peanut butter in cheese. I'm sorry, hard block cheese and peanut butter. That's how he got his protein. Swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember having conversations with him about this decades ago. And it's a lost cause, right? Like the teacher appears when the student is ready. I mean, you can't just, proselytize and tell people that. But I told my dad, true story, when he was running on hard surfaces, when I was in my early 20s, I said, Dad, if you don't stop running on hard surfaces, you're going to lose your hips and both of your knees. You're going to have them replaced. And he looked at me. He's like, what the fuck? You don't know shit. Okay, dude. He's got both knees and both hips replaced at his age now. Right. So it's like you can only help people who want to be helped. And at the end of the day, according to your question again, people, you can only, they have to learn. These are things that they have to actually reach out and expand and learn. And no GLP, no matter how advanced they get, is ever going to improve or help anybody beyond the people that desire to be helped because they know all the other things. So it's like you still have to do the things. You still have to understand metabolic flexibility. You still have to live insulin controlled. You still got to lift weights. You still got to do cardiovascular exercise. You still got to get, 7 to 9 hours or 6 to 8 hours of polyphasic deep restorative sleep every night. You got to mitigate EMFs. You got to do all these things living in this contaminated world, and taking a GLP, to lose 20 pounds is not one of those things.
Yeah. It's always the classic 9 to 10 analysis of everything. Like any of the stuff any of the biohackers are talking about, it's like that last little, sugar on top, so to speak, that you can reserve for getting things dialed in to the last degree if everything else is in place.
Exactly. And I say that all the time. When I talk about peptides, I always tell people, like, you can't just willy-nilly start using peptides if you don't have the foundational precepts or the foundations dialed in. And the foundations are always going to be, number one is, do you have a hormone deficiency? 80% of people in society have a hormone deficiency. Does that mean you got to start therapeutic testosterone? No, but it means you do have to address why you have a hormone deficiency. And again, most people have no idea they have a hormone deficiency. The average doctor doesn't even know how to treat a hormone deficiency. They don't even know to order their labs to find out about their free and total testosterone, right? So you always have to address the bleeding neck of your life before you start throwing in peptides or bioregulators or hormones or GLPs or any of these things. Because you're right, they're all awesome cherries on top, but they're not going to move the needle for you unless you're already walking the path of doing the other things.
Yeah. You said you've got a daughter, senior in high school right now. You have any other kids?
I do. So I have a sophomore and a senior, and then I raised my wife's biologicals. I raised essentially 2.5 of them because one of them was estranged and was with her ex. But they're 29 now, 26 and 23. And so, I was instrumental in most of their life raising them. So essentially I raised like almost 5 kids, 4.5 kids. That's kind of the way I did it over the last 20 years. Nice.
Okay. In light of that, them being, early chapters of their lives, got their whole world ahead of them.
Yep.
You want to obviously know what you know, lay good fundamental groundwork for them. How do you, direct them when it comes to like nutrition, peptides, what they should use, what they should, focus on right now or totally ignore until a certain chapter in life? Like, how do you kind of set them up for success? Know what you know?
I mean, it's an awesome question. And I've answered this a couple times before. As a parent, we have to lead from the front. So how we live our lives is how our children will engage later in their lives, right? So it's like you have to just, like I said, lead from the front. You have to be the example. You have to be the light. And so my wife and I have been living this life of training and eating right and being consistent in our methodologies. And so they've all observed that, and so all of my kids, even my 15-year-old, well, she's going to be 16 in December. They're athletic. They go to the gym. They do cardio in the house. Do they all like eat as religiously as my wife and I, Monica, do? No, right? But do they understand what a protein, carbohydrate, and a fat is? Yes, they definitely understand that. And again, they just maybe learned it from observing their parents. Maybe they learned it through osmosis, right? But like the other stuff, like peptides and hormones, and bioregulators and supplements and GLPs and all that, like I'm sure because they know about us and they talk to us about our use of these things. Because I have these conversations with my 17-year-old. My 17-year-old has used a GLP-3 already. She knows what it is. She knows how to do it. I taught her how to administer with a medical grade pen, and she used it for about 4 months to lose like 9 or 10 pounds. She's a cheerleader, a competitor, very, very athletic. And of course, I taught her. I would never have taught her if I didn't think she was consistent enough to understand how to do it. But to your question, we've led from the front enough that we feel like our kids now, even though like the 29-year-old's in the Navy and he'll be getting out of the Navy. He's been in the Navy for 6 years. He'll be getting out of the Navy in end of either middle of November to early of December, depending on when he gets out. He's on an aircraft carrier right now. He texts me all the time and he asks me advice about nutrition. The 26-year-old also is he works in the biochemical industry. He'll probably end up working for me at some point in his life. He's, working in San Diego right now. He always texts me all the time and asks me about, hey, what do you think about this supplement? I'm going to change this about my training. What do you think about this? Our 23-year-old daughter is a Division II All-American soccer player. So she's super athletic. She's literally just got her doctorate degree. And now she's in her last year of college because her boyfriend is a sixth-year starting point guard for New Mexico. So she's living in Albuquerque until their basketball season's over. And then they're actually both going to try to go over to Europe and play professional, her soccer and him basketball. And we'll see. They may get a cup of coffee. And then, of course, my two youngest daughters, obviously my wife and I in Tampa, Florida, both raised, and we talk to them and see them every day. And we talk about these things all the time. So, my guess is that when they're ready, if and when they're ready, they'll come to us and they'll ask us about using peptides. The 29-year-old is already talking to me about possibly using testosterone because he has low testosterone. And again, 29-year-old men, it's normal in Western society today to have low testosterone because of the environment, because of all the things that they're up against that, our forefathers and ancestors didn't have. So I would just say, I guess the answer to the question is really that we just lead by example and we let them know that we're here for them. If they have a question about any of those things, but we're very, very vocal. We're very, very open. We're very transparent. We're very clear about what we do. I mean, obviously they all follow us on social media. And so they read our stuff and, there as the kids, get information or get feedback from people all the time and say, hey, could you ask your dad about this? You know what I mean? So they spend time, asking us that and actualizing or self-actualizing a lot of that. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of weird at times, I think, but I just feel like that we've led them from a responsible, do as we do, standpoint that they'll come to us if and when they're ready. But I will definitely tell you right now, Robert, that all of them they're all lean. They all exercise regularly. My 15-year-old daughter is doing cardio on the treadmill, at night when she comes home from school. She's in cheer. My 17-year-old goes to the gym 3 days a week. You know what I mean? As a senior in high school, and lifts on her own, by herself. She has a boyfriend. He's a football player now as a freshman in some Division II school. I think it's Towson, or it's actually Division I, Towson State. So, they learned from us. They watched us and they watched our lifestyle habits, and that's kind of where they are now. So I think that's the best, in a long-winded way, that's the best way I could answer that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I feel like you got to live by example. And I feel like kids, they're a lot smarter than people give them credit for. They can look at their peer group, they can look at their peers, parents, and it's like, okay, fast forward, 20, 30 years. Like, I don't want them living that life. They don't want to live that life.
No.
Look at us. What are we doing differently than them? Try and emulate that if you want to mimic it,
In truth, and I don't judge people or condemn people for saying this, but we don't drink any alcohol. There's no drugs, other than hormones and peptides and stuff like that and biohacking stuff. But we don't have bad habits. So there's nothing that they've observed. And, and we've had that conversation about like drinking and smoking weed and all that stuff. And they kind of know that like we frown on that. Right. So it's like we told them like, hey, if you have friends like that and you think that's cool, it's not. So it's not the path to go, like we're not like, how would I say, like ostracizing them and being like vehemently like, you can't do that because, when you tell kids that they can't do it, they're going to do it. Right.
Right.
But we encourage them to like hang out with people that are not doing that stuff because those type of people usually don't go anywhere. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just kind of the way the world works and stuff. So I feel very good that, none of my daughters at 15 and 17 right now and none of the older ones, ever really hung around with the wrong crowd or did anything stupid. I'm sure they've experimented from time to time with things, but none of them are big drinkers. They don't smoke weed, which I think, dude, a lot of kids today do. So I think I think that's a big, win, if I want to call it that they're not that way. But of course, it's like what you said. It's like they're not because they never observed their parents doing that. And I don't know how many parents in today's society are truly like, leading from the front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're in a struggle themselves. Their life is everyday struggle, pay the bills, show up to work on time, make sure that the mortgage is paid, make sure they have enough money to send their kids to a summer camp or whatever it is. We all have bills and issues. There's no doubt about it, but it's just, it's again, leading by example.
100%, man. Last question for you, man. What's got you excited going forward? Obviously the peptides get you ramped up. Sounds like a lot of exciting things within your company, but what is something you're excited about that you're not typically just talking about on the podcast, something outside the norm?
Just the idea that I get the opportunity to talk about the things that I love and that I'm passionate about, at a very scalable way now. Like, I feel like, Robert, in the last year to the last year and a half, like this is just like my information, the desire for people to have the information that I have is just exponentially exploded. And so now it's just a blessing to be able to wake up every single Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, every single day is the same. Knowing that like I have a really amazing responsibility to teach people, how to do these things and to do these things in the process, in the context of health and longevity, and to not fuck themselves up, to not get sick, to not overdose, to not abuse. And so it's just an honor and a blessing, to know that every single day I have this amazing ability, to do this. Honestly, dude, like think about it. I literally have a life where I get a chance to talk to people like you for a living on podcasts about stuff that I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? Like how many people in society today truly can say they do that, right? Like I just was on one of my private calls last night and I was reading this book. It's an amazing book. And it's like, we were talking about like taking an assessment of your life. And it's like, how many people in their chosen field or profession every single day can honestly look in the mirror and say that they're happy about what it is they're doing? 10% or less, 5% or less.
Yeah, it's abysmal, man. Like it's funny you mentioned all that because I've been really in that frame of thought as well. And yeah, like you said, we've all got our own struggles, we've all got our own heartaches, and that's just life. But man, if I won the freaking lottery and wanted to build my exact life out to my specs, like I'd build pretty much what I've got going right now.
Yeah, you absolutely have it right now. I'll just give you what you can end this podcast. Like these are the questions, right? So these are the questions. I'll just read them all off as fast as possible so we can end this podcast. But who am I? Where am I going? What is my purpose in life? If I had 1 month to live, what regrets would I have? Am I happy? And if not, why not? Am I healthy? If not, why not? That's a big one because most people are not healthy. Am I getting out of life all that life has to offer? Do I love my job and love getting up on Monday mornings? If not, why not? What can I do about it? Is what I spend most of my time doing helping other people? If so, how? What are my desires and passions in life, right? So again, back to what you and I just said, like we literally, bro, live our desires and passions. How many people get a chance to do that? If money were no issue, what would I really want to do with my life? That is a huge question that will blow most people's brains up because they have no answer to that. Right? Because most people live because they have to make money to survive. They're not thriving, they're surviving, right? And then what am I doing right and what am I doing wrong? And then the last two questions are, what do I need to do more of to advance the most spiritually? And then the last question is, am I the best parent? And this is a real bowl mover. Am I the best parent, the best spouse, the best person that I can be? If not, what needs to change? So you can imagine answering those questions, bro, will change your life And those are things that you have to really become introspective and reflective about. And it's not something that everybody can answer in 15 minutes.
Yeah. What's crazy is like you and I can go through that list and feel pretty good about the vast majority of those answers. But there's like almost 8 billion people on this planet. What if 8 billion people could say the same thing? Like how much more value would the world be filled with? I mean, everybody like feeling the way that you and I feel. Like that would be amazing place to live, man.
I think you have to, just to add to that, yeah, 100%. But I think you have to get to, as I say, you have to get to a level of spiritual awareness where you realize that you are not your body, that you are an energy, an infinite energy soul being, and that you are going to live forever, even when this physical body dies. Once you can overcome that idea, this limited, finite construct that you're this body in this space and time, then everything opens up for you, because now you're not in resistance to like all the things that may be bothering you or maybe issues in your life, you know, being able to pay for this or buy that or whatever. I mean, you probably can make an argument that money is the ultimate finite limitation for almost everyone if from a perspective standpoint. But once you realize that it's not, and you're only creating that idea as a construct in your mind, then life becomes a lot easier. But we all have to work to get to that place where it's like not that big of a deal.
100%, man. Shoot, we need to do this another time, man. This is only the first time you and I have talked. We need to do this again. We need to do it over steaks.
I'd love to, man. I appreciate your questions were great. And it was an awesome, very free-flowing conversation. So just let me know, dude. And if I still have my podcast, of course, I'd bring you on mine, but I'm just guesting on stuff.
Hey, well, when everything comes out with the business, man, we'll get you back on. Where do people go to find out more and dive deeper right now?
For sure. So for BioLongevity Labs, if you want to purchase peptides, bioregulators, small molecule supplements, just go to biolongevitylabs.com. Use the affiliate code JAYC. If you want to become an affiliate, you can edit it and we can throw your code in there for when this podcast runs, and be happy to do that. It's 15% off. We run sales all the time. We're always heavily discounting. It's all about a service to others company. And then to find info on me, to get a free PDF copy of all the books I've ever written, which are 9 now, 5 are international bestsellers. It's jcampbell.com/free -info. And then of course you can find me on social media at jcampbell333. And when people say, what does 333 mean? It's the angel number, and it's the connection between master teachers and spirit and mind body. So that's why I have 333 on there. But yeah, that's how you can find me. So dude, it was an honor to be here today. Appreciate you.
Hey man, pleasure's mine. I've truly enjoyed the conversation. We'll definitely keep it going. And if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know, brother.
Awesome, man. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.